Mr. Swana, very quickly, let's get into it. Eskom is to be split into 3 entities. Does Eskom remain a public entity after that? Or is this, as Irvin Jim says, the start or the road towards privatization?
It's going to be tricky, but we've seen the ANC down this road before with Telkom, where they started selling equity. We don't have too much of our own resources at the moment to put into Eskom and to continue rescuing Eskom, if I may use those kinds of words. So there is a big chance. I think the private sector is going to have a much bigger role to play going forward in terms of who invests money into this.
I like what you've just said, because you're saying they did this with the other entity. And does that entity, if we use that entity as an example, does that entity remain profitable right now?
That is Telkom. Telkom, there were several things that were done with Telkom. One of the cleverest things that was done was to invest in Vodacom. If you remember, Eskom was making a lot of money from Vodacom. But the traditional business of Telkom itself over time, Telkom is struggling even now. They bought BCX to try and become a digital business. So there is confusion of survive, almost to the point of whether Telkom is going to continue to be relevant and survive and compete in the very changing space of telecommunications.
The biggest fear, of course, for trade unions is retrenchment of workers. Is that going to happen?
Actually, it is inevitable. I think the retrenchment of workers is in the pipeline. If you go back to some of Gwede, when Gwede, at an earlier stage, when Gwede was still more in the unions and so on, Gwede was one of the people who talked about the problems of privatization and how much job losses have come about with privatization. So I certainly do expect that as you privatize, there will be a certain very significant degree of job losses. And also it will impact on the price paid by the commercial, industrial, and private consumers. I think we've got a very long road to go with Eskom.
We've heard about the fight in relation to the introduction of independent power producers. The SACP just last night is putting a very strong argument that Eskom can be diversified so that it still becomes the key supplier of renewable energy. Is that even possible?
The reason why I raised the issue of Vodacom in the case of Telkom, it was exactly that new technologies were coming in. If you remember, it would take you, I don't know how long to get a phone in South Africa, but when the MTNs, the Vodacoms kicked in, everybody started having a phone almost immediately. So Telkom was very clever in investing in the incoming technologies. What remains to be seen is the extent to which this Eskom is going to itself invest in the new incoming technologies. It's possible to be done. They've done it elsewhere before successfully, but whether they are ready to do it in this instance is another question. To do it is possible to do it.
Let's move on to the next point, and that's the directorate that's going to be stationed inside the NDPP's office. Perhaps before we talk about it, let's listen in to the President.
Yes.
The revelations emerging from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture and other commissions are deeply disturbing, for they reveal a breadth and depth of criminal wrongdoing that challenges the very foundations of our democratic state. Now, we commend these commissions for the work that they are doing. And some of them are doing very important work. And some of them are doing very important work under difficult and challenging circumstances to uncover the truth. Now, what is important is that the truth must be revealed. These commissions need to be able to do their work without any hindrance, and we call on all those who are in a position to assist them in their investigations to make themselves available. While these commissions will in time make findings and recommendations in line with their mandates, evidence of criminal activity that emerges must be evaluated by the criminal justice system. Where there is a basis to prosecute, prosecutions must follow swiftly. Now, and stolen public funds must be recovered urgently without any fail. Now, to this end, we have agreed with the new National Director of Public Prosecutions.
Order, members. Order. Can we proceed, please?
Honorable Speaker.
Now, to this end.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable President, please. Is that a point of order, Honorable Malema?
No, Tabama Gwetla is clapping hands here. This guy is
Thank
going
you,
to
sir.
jail. He thinks we are playing.
Honorable Malema, that was not a point of order. Honorable Tabang, don't clap hands. Please proceed, Mr. President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of Council of Provinces, to this end, we have agreed with the new National Director of Public Prosecutions that there is an urgent need to establish in the office of the NDPP an investigating directorate dealing with serious corruption and associated offences in accordance with Section 7 of the NPA Act.
Mr. Swana, the directorate will combine investigative and prosecutorial capabilities. Are the Scorpions back?
I would say so. And I think the ANC must be commended for doing this. In the first place, it was them who abolished the Scorpions, and that was an error. And secondly, I think even this president and his executive need to be very careful that they do not interfere with the work of the National Director of Prosecutions, the work of the NPA, and the work of the Scorpions, if we will call them that.
Is this not, though, a massive vote of no confidence on the Hawks?
I think the way we speak, and even in the speech itself, Cyril Ramaphosa's speech, that is one of the questions, because he proposes something new without saying what was wrong with what was there before. So there needs to be a truthful confession that we made a mistake by abolishing the Scorpions. And the cases that were pending at the time that the Scorpions were abolished, those cases must be revived and prosecuted to demonstrate good faith to the nation of South Africa. And I think members of parliament as well need to ask themselves, how are they going to provide oversight so that the executive does not interfere with the NPA and prosecutions general, which has been the trend since the abolition of the Scorpions.
Something that South Africans just finally will possibly be happy about is that he says, in broad terms, this directorate will focus on evidence coming out of the ongoing commissions of inquiry. Is he intimating that there is going to be a fast tracking of cases based on evidence that's coming out of these commissions?
I think that is where we are. And I think it's very prudent and very necessary, because you cannot delay cases for 10 years. And then you don't have a remedy for that, because that is where part of the credibility of the ANC and its government comes from. That how can you allow cases to just rot and sit there and do nothing for 10 years?
How soon is promulgating a proclamation that will set out the terms of this? Because I think that's what South Africans are desperate for.
I can't tell that. I don't know what the legal process is and how fast it can go. But I think that now that they've made a public commitment, the opposition parties and the NGOs, the civil society, need to hold the president and his cabinet to this very, very strongly. We cannot let up the pressure on this government, because We as citizens have allowed this situation that we're in to arise because we took everything at face value. We're very casual, very, very casual. Even the abolition of the scorpions in the first place, the whole nation should have stood up. We didn't.
Mr. Swana, thank you very much for your time. Political analyst Sandile Swana joining us here this morning to dissect the President's State of the Nation.